My name is Kyoko Fushimi, and I'm an ordinary 27-year-old social worker. This time, I think I'll talk about my strange family. This topic can be traced all the way back to when I was a young girl. Back then, we were a simple family, living together, the four of us. My mother, Kuniko, my father, Kazuyoshi, and my older sister of 1 year, Uriko. Could it have started in elementary school, when we started to notice big differences in how me and my older sister looked? My sister was a beautiful girl, and looked nothing like me. So, of course, she was pampered by everyone around her. And with me looking like nothing of interest, I was sometimes pitied by onlookers. Well, there was nothing I could do about that because those people were strangers, but my parents also favored my sister. She was prioritized with things to wear and toys, and I was always left alone and unhappy. And my sister herself, well, hey, bring me a juice box. Also, the small bones and fish annoy me, so pick them out. All right? In this way, she developed the habit of ordering me around on a daily basis. Furthermore, using the fact that I was only good at studying, she made me do her homework too. Because of this, I was always mastering the study materials a whole grade ahead of me, but I lived through my elementary school life being used by my sister. In a way, I actually became her housemaid. At first, I wasn't happy about this, of course. Do it yourself! Why do you always make me do it? But once I say these things, my sister ran to my parents, crying, and I was later scolded unfairly. If I resisted my sister's wishes, not only would I be scolded, but I wouldn't get meals either, so I had to obey. With my blood boiling this life of hell, I did my best in drowning my emotions with studying. Could have been fortunate or unfortunate, but because I was doing all of my sister's homework, my grades were always impressive. In this way, I entered the top-class high school to prepare for university. I never laid off on my efforts to success, and at the university examinations, I was offered admission to a prestigious university with a full scholarship. I never had any hopes that my parents would pay for my education, but my financial worries were soon out the window. I chose a school that definitely had dorm rooms, so I was out of my parents as soon as I graduated high school. Finally, I was free from my family. After that, although it's busy with studies and a part-time job, my university life is so amazing. But as I started my second year, I got a line message from my mother. "It's been a while. How are you?" Wait, what's going on? So it's wrong to contact my daughter who lives far away from me? This past year, I've had nothing from you. Don't blame me if I'm a bit skeptical of how do you do out of the blue. What a nice thing to say to your own mother. Anyway, you had something to tell me? Actually, Eriko is engaged now. She's still a university student, right? Yeah, but it looks like she was locked by her partner. I mean, after all, she can't leave a girl like her, can you? Right. That's it? Usually you ask who her significant other is, right? If you want to talk about it, by all means. Surprisingly, he's apparently the CEO in charge of an IT company. You're kidding me! So does that mean he's apparently about as old as Dad? After that, he's apparently still in his mid-30s. Such a wonderful life, while still so young. Even so, he still seems a bit old. But who cares, I guess. Tell her congrats. Alright, I'm gonna do my assignment now, so I'll see you later. Wait. The really good stuff hasn't started yet. He's going to gift us with his presence here at home, and I'd like you to be here too. Why should I? You don't need me. He said that he'd like to meet everyone in the family. I'm not coming. Too bad. If you don't, I'm going to your dorm to get your butt over here. Don't do that, it's gonna be embarrassing. Well then, be a good girl and come back home. As usual, being Miss Goody Two-Shoes and spoiling my sister rotten, I can only let out an exasperated sigh about my mother. Obviously, I didn't want to go back home. But if my sister is gonna marry someone rich, then they won't pay any more heed to me. I became hopeful that this time, I'll finally be able to cut ties with them completely. And here I am, back home for the first time in about a year. I prayed with all my heart that this would be the last time. When I went inside, my parents and my sister were all there. Her fiancé would arrive a little later, almost immediately after my arrival. "Hey, get the coffee ready. Oh, but first, we're out of tea, so go buy some." The usual housemaid bullshit. Then her fiancé arrived.
My name is Masamitsu Asahara. Thank you for taking some time out of your day.
My sister's fiancé did indeed seem high in the ranks, but he also looked high in cholesterol levels. No way this guy's my sister's type. But it shouldn't be a problem since he's pretty rich. Upon meeting him, my parents were like, "Oh no, it's our honor to have you visit us, and we offer our humble gratitude."
Please, do make yourself comfortable.
Although it is my sister's fiancé, you could actually see them rubbing their hands with hope. Oh yeah, they did say something about wanting to move because of this old house. What surprised me most, however, was my sister's attitude. "I poured you the tea you like most, Mr. Masamitsu. I also got you some treats I thought you might like as well." We've been together for so long, but it was the first I saw her serving someone. It hadn't been 15 minutes since her fiancé arrived, and I was already feeling nauseous. But aside with how he looks, Mr. Masamitsu was like,
So, you're Kyoko, the younger sister. I'm so happy to meet you. I do hope we can get along.
Upon talking to him, he seemed very well-mannered and honest. As I was thinking about how much of a good man he appeared to be, I began to feel some pity. He was going to deal with this kind of family for the rest of his days. After getting engaged, my sister dropped out of university. Well, she hasn't got the need to study anymore, so it could be the case. Furthermore, she hauled the whole burden of preparing the wedding onto my shoulders. Even very detailed work like handwritten invitations was all done by me and me only. And on the big day, my sister looked beautiful in the dress that cocooned her. But what's on the inside is the problem. Even when wearing an extravagant dress. "This dress costs 3 million yen, you know. Take a good look at it, because you're not getting anything close to this." She gives the tedious side of life to someone else and still treats me like shit. All of that aside, the ceremony finished without anything going wrong. The burden is now off my shoulders. As I predicted, after the wedding, I never got any contact from my sister or from my parents again. No doubt they're living the leisurely life full of extravagance and have forgotten all about me. 7 years later, now at 27, I'm working hard as an employee at a major foreign capital firm. At this age, the pay I'm getting is rather quite something. Not only that, I also got myself a boyfriend, Tatsuma Ukigaya, my superior at the company, and a manager even though he's still in his 30s. At around the time of our first anniversary,
Please, will you marry me?
Yes, I will. To my great surprise, he even proposed to me. As you can see, life was getting great for me. But one day...
By the way, because we're getting married, I should have the pleasure of meeting your parents sometime, right?
You really don't need to.
You know I can't let that not happen. We're inviting them to our wedding after all.
Is this really necessary?
I mean, usually, I guess.
You're right. I understand. I know I understand, but...
Hey, I have a faint idea that things back at home aren't going too well.
You thought right.
Oh my gosh! Was it something abusive? If it was, I can understand why you don't want to see them.
No, it wasn't anything near physical abuse. They never really paid any attention to me. And what with the years going by without any contact, it's a little complicated.
If there's any reason why you would rather not meet them, I'll respect that, of course. But I'd also like to know what exactly that reason is, if that's all right.
I'm not, forbidding it or anything. Do you really want to pay them a visit?
It's something formal, but it's the least I can do now that we're getting married.
All right then, I'll let them know. How's next Sunday?
I think I can make it. There's some work I've got to take care of, and that might make me a bit late.
Then I'll go ahead, and once you're finished with your work, please join us.
Got it. What should I bring as a gift?
I think they'll be happy if it's something a little expensive. I'll see you on Sunday then. And this is how I told my mother of my engagement, and how I reluctantly went back home. To my surprise, home had now changed to an expensive mansion in the middle of the city. Probably something my sister's husband owns. Once I went inside, my sister was the one to greet me, even though I hadn't invited her. Upon seeing my face, my sister said as she smiled, "Marrying someone with the likes of you? What a curious character. I won't mock no matter what man walks through that door, so don't fret, okay?" Casting aspersions as such, but later on.
Thank you for having me. I'm Tatsuma Ukigaya.
As my fiancé walked in, the atmosphere changed. After all, he is an unorthodoxly handsome man. His job is a manager of a major company and an elite who's accomplished some extraordinary things at a young age. And because the company is based on meritocracy, his yearly income exceeds 10 million yen. With a high-ranked man exceeding all her expectations walking through her door, my sister had a jealous look on her face. My heart lightened up a little bit. But perhaps as a form of revenge, how about we look through the old photo album? There are some photos of young Kyoko, too. Well, I mean, it could be something usual when having your fiancé pay your family a visit, but I was always looking pretty grim as a child because of my family's situation. So there were many photos of me that aren't exactly nice. Look at this here. Kyoko was a stern girl who never smiled. We were often told that even though we were siblings, we didn't look like each other, lol. My sister beating around the bush with the insults, and my parents additionally said, "Really? How are you two so different from each other, even as siblings?" LOL.
It's like there's not much color in how you look or act.
In the case of my parents, instead of saying what they thought about me, they just went along with my sister. But even so, saying these things in front of my fiancé, I was of course sad and embarrassed. For the few hours I was back at home, I was doing my darndest to fight back the welling tears. My name is Eriko Fushimi, and I'm a 28-year-old housewife. Recently, my sister brought her fiancé back home, and I was wondering what man a fat, blank bitch like her would bring home. To my bitter surprise, it was a handsome, elite office worker. I really thought it was a prank. As for my husband, while he's rich, he's not doing too well compared to once upon a time. That's because of his company losing steam. Furthermore, while he was fat from the beginning, after marrying me, he got even rounder. Even though I was already never gonna love him for his looks, nowadays, it's often I consider it disgusting how round he's become. I forbid myself falling lower than my stupid sister. I forbid it. That's why I made up my mind to steal her fiancé away from her. Hello again, Mr. Tatsuma. I hope I'm not intruding.
You aren't. But how did you find out my ID?
Your name is on the business card you gave my father.
I see. And how can I be of assistance?
Not so much assistance, but rather, I thought it would be nice for us to get closer.
With me? Again? Why, if I may?
To be honest, I was interested in you since we first met, and I would really like to get to know you more, Mr. Tatsuma.
I'm already engaged to your sister, and pardon me, but you're also married, are you not?
Yes, but although this is quite the direct way of putting it, you know how my sister looks pitiful or rather unattractive. I thought it would be more acceptable if you had a woman like me walking at your side. Honestly, things with my husband haven't been going well recently, and I feel lonely.
I see.
So, how about we go for a drink this weekend? You may even stay the night if you'd like.
What an interesting idea. Do you know a resort called the MoniRobo Hotel?
Of course. That's super expensive hotel in the city, right?
How about living a few days of super extravagant life in a trip to Tokyo?
Oh, how wonderful! Please take me with you.
Then I'll pick you up on Friday evening, and we'll have a nice meal at the hotel restaurant. And later, let's relax in our room.
I'm so excited.
As am I.
I danced the light fantastic at results better than I'd even hoped for. All that was left was to make him obsessed over me, and he'd ditch my sister. And on the big day, I was brought over the threshold of hotel property at Mr. Tatsuma's side. First, because it was a little early for dinner. We were going to have some tea in the lounge, but upon reaching the lounge...
Eriko! What on earth are you doing here?
Mr. Matsumitsu? What a coincidence! To my shock, my husband was sitting there. The same husband who isn't making things work with our relationship. And then, something even more disturbing would happen. Sis, you do know I'm getting you for this. My younger sister appeared too. Then, with a face that said everything was now in order, Mr. Tatsuma said,
All right, now that everyone's here, I will explain the situation.
What he started explaining with a cheerful aura was that, firstly, my husband's company was doing worse than I'd imagined, and it was eventually decided to be sold to a major company. The buyer was the company where my sister and Mr. Tatsuma were employed. It seems a coincidence that she's now in charge of her older sister's husband's company. The arrangements were soon going to be complete, and the final meeting was going to be here in this hotel. In other words, it was planned that I was taken to see my husband. To the still confused Mr. Masamitsu, I gave additional information. Of course, I told him my sister was seducing my fiancé and came to this hotel. His face became increasingly red, and he began to shake with anger. I mean, like, duh. No, you've got it all wrong, Mr. Matsumitsu. I had something to discuss with Mr. Tatsuma. She desperately tried to walk away from this situation, but it was a futile attempt. After all, the messages seducing Mr. Tatsuma were all very well saved in the chat history. And then Mr. Masamitsu said,
I'm sorry, but today's meeting will have to wait. I've made an appointment with my lawyers.
And left the scene. My sister, whose marriage was now in shambles. What is the meaning of this? This is too cruel. Working together, the both of you to catch me. Started accusing us, but...
Going home after I paid my visit, Kyoko told me everything that you and your parents have done to her. Compared to what you've done, she's much more attractive than the likes of you. And anyway, weren't you the one who invited me to do something together?
Mr. Tatsuma coldly rebuked her. Sis, if you just left us alone, we weren't gonna do anything. But because you're meddling with my life, I'm no longer going to be patient. I also rebuked her as such. She was later divorced. Normally, she would have given some financial aid afterwards, but her husband had signed a prenup before the wedding, so she was thrown with next to nothing. Sure enough, my parents were living at Mr. Masamitsu's mansion, and had no choice but to leave. Their whole lives were being taken care of, and my father had left his job. They were apparently living semi-retired lives, and leisure and love. In other words, my parents and my sister were all thrown away, all unemployed. A depressing, hard life is waiting for them now, I'll bet.